So Buttigieg drops out the race. Klobuchar follows up and drops out of the race. Tom Steyer drops out of the race. Now, Buttigieg and Klobuchar both endorsed one Joe Biden. So you have a situation where the moderates in the party are consolidating around Joe Biden as their candidate. On top of this, despite Warren doing worse than Klobuchar and Joe Biden, Warren is remaining in the race. Now, when I made this argument, I think it was maybe for about a year now, saying that Warren is not running as a factor unto herself. Warren is running on Team Stop Sanders. There were some people who didn't necessarily buy that. Some people thought it was too early to say that. But what about now? What about now? Warren has no path to winning the nomination. Warren most likely will lose her own state. She has no path to win a nomination or her own state. She's losing from the standpoint of what people consider to be better on environment. She's losing in regards to better or more authentic, more honest, the person who cares about your problems more, meaning she's losing on all of these groups. She only beat Pete in the demographic for blacks by like 1 percentage point. And yeah, that's Pete who can't, for the life of him, get black support. Meaning she's losing to minorities. She's losing from the standpoint of her finances. She's losing from the standpoint of being trusted on an entire swath of issues. And yet, she's staying in the race. You tell me, why would Warren stay in the race under these circumstances? Again, the moderates have consolidated around Joe Biden. They're out the race, meaning all of that support, a lot of it is going to go to Biden. Some is going to go to Sanders, but the predominance, it's believed, will go to Biden. Warren, who is eating into Sanders numbers, I think 40% of Warren supporters would go to Sanders if Warren wasn't in the race. Warren's importance is to lock up and maintain that demographic of the Sanders votes to effectively kneecap him so the other candidate, Joe Biden, in the race can accede to the nomination. Meaning if Warren wasn't in this race and those votes went to Sanders, that would create that much more of a difficult situation for Joe Biden to win. By Warren staying in the race and eating into Sanders support, sandbagging his support by keeping those Sanders supporters locked up into her voting demographic, she, on Team Stop Sanders, assists the corporate candidate to exceed the primary. It is ludicrous to believe that Warren is going to keep her delegates to the end, and a candidate who lost every state, who doesn't have a broad coalition, and who has horrible political instincts. It is ludicrous to believe that they're going to choose Warren for that. That doesn't, however, necessarily mean that Warren won't be handsomely rewarded if she stops Sanders in the context of the next administration. Meaning, even though she herself is not necessarily going to be the person that the party chooses when they rip it away from Sanders, she will benefit in the administration that allows, that will most likely bring her into the administration when she helps be a team player and stop Sanders. Let's talk about it. Sanders' enemies are surrounding him, and that's to put it mildly. And I also mean enemies in the sense of Warren. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patron. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing Super Tuesday. So tomorrow is going to be a very, very busy day. We're going to try to get contributor appreciation done. And we're also going to be late doing Super Tuesday. So as I said in the opening, Klobuchar has dropped out of the race. Pete has dropped out of the race. Steyer has dropped out of the race. Now the question becomes, what effect would those moderates dropping out of the race have on the race itself? In many of the states that we were going into, the moderate vote was being split, meaning between Pete, Klobuchar, and Biden. Well, if Pete and Klobuchar gets out of the race, where would the predominance of that support go? Or better yet, where do they believe the predominance of that support will go? Will a party that said they can cheat in a contest, will they work in tandem to stop the person who they consider to be an existential threat? And if they would stop in tandem to stop that person, can you exclude Warren from the calculus on this? Meaning, Warren locking up a segment of Sanders' votes in order to keep him from winning the nomination only helps Biden. That's the only person that helps. And I'm going to let you hear Warren herself. Her campaign has finally come out and admitted that their objective in this is to stop Sanders. Something else that also needs to be understood: the super PAC. If Warren didn't have a super PAC, she would have gone broke. In order for Warren to compete in the various states all across the United States, the super PAC is the thing that's going to allow her to do that. But understand what that means. That means that you have oligarchs who are giving Elizabeth Warren a ton of dark money in order to stay in a race that she otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to stay into. Meaning the entire point of that super PAC is to keep Warren putting about in the race with the hopes that she can last until she gets to the convention, whereby those votes that are locked up into her can be bestowed upon somebody like Joe Biden. That's the entire point of the super PAC. The super PAC is effectively the person who was screaming about a super PACs being horrible is now accepting a dark money super PAC to let her stay into the race so they can stick it to Sanders in the convention. And again, do you honestly believe that she won't be well compensated by whoever she helps win the race that is not named Sanders? Of course she will. This is her. Listen to what they said about her campaign, the point and the goal of her campaign.
The fight isn't over. In fact, one person close to the campaign I talked to in just the last few hours said that tonight is about blunting the momentum for Bernie Sanders. That is what they are paying attention to.
The goal is to blunt the momentum of Bernie Sanders. So multiple things have been taking place. With all those people dropping out of the race, with Warren, despite doing worse than Pete and even Klobuchar in many of these states, stays in the race. And then she turns her fire directly on Sanders. So not only is she staying in the race, not only is she now using a super PAC in order to keep her in the race and keep her competitive in the Super Tuesday states, with the other candidates leaving the race, she has a much higher potential to get delegates. And again, every delegate she gets is a vote for super delegates to rip it away from the person who actually wins it in the end if that person is named Sanders. She's also now turned her fire onto Sanders. So not only is she sandbagging him, not only is she locking up support, not only has she been losing every state and will most likely not win her own state, she is also now attacking Sanders directly. Friend and ally of the left, supposedly. That's what Ryan Grimm and Emma Vigeland kept telling us, that she's a friend and ally of the left. Well, that friend and ally of the left is now working with the Democratic Party in order to stop the actual champion of the left, Sanders. And at this point, she's just utterly belligerent.
But this crisis is a reminder that this primary isn't a game. We are picking a president, and
basically, Warren is going to say something about her rock-solid values.
we need someone whose core values can be trusted, who has a plan for how to govern, and who can actually get it done.
So her argument about Sanders now is basically he can't get stuff done. She even has gone into this notion of electability. Now, again, a woman who will not even win one state, who's going to lose her own state most likely, is calling and making up hay about somebody else being more electable. That's utterly astonishing. She keeps going with this. She has multiple hits out on Sanders, which is, again, when some people are looking at this, they're shocked by this. They don't understand this. It doesn't make sense to them. It makes all the sense in the world depending upon your point of view. If your point of view is Warren is a creature of the party, and that unity pact that these two had only exceeded up until the point where she started to lose, if she's indeed a creature of the party, all of this makes sense. if she couldn't sandbag him, and if the sandbagging wasn't appropriate, meaning it wasn't enough to stop him, she starts to collapse. The moment she starts to collapse, she gets utterly belligerent and goes full steam attacking Sanders. Attacking Sanders, mind you, when he's the best potential for the left to get a candidate out of the primary process. And that the only person she's helping at this point is Joe Biden, and yes, herself, in that she believes she's probably going to be rewarded if she's able to stop Sanders. Here's another piece where she went, again, entirely on the assault to stop Sanders. And if I am right, and that all of this from the beginning was about stopping Sanders, and her even being in this race to some degree was to take support away from Sanders, then her behavior now makes all the sense in the world. Pete, Amy, get out, give Biden the best chance. Warren stays in, gets a dark money super PAC, giving her a ton of money to stay some degree competitive in the various states, and then attack Sanders in order to eat into his numbers further. It makes all the sense in the world looking at it from the angle that Warren is just a creature of the party, just like Amy and Pete, and that all of them are working in concert to help get Joe Biden elected.
Demands more than a senator who has good ideas, but whose 30-year track record shows he consistently calls for things that fail to get done and consistently opposing things that nevertheless he fails to stop.
That is a super weird argument. Basically, Sanders has been on the right side of history on a large swath of issues. And that more so makes the point that the Democratic Party has not been. He has been consistent over the course of his career. The Democratic Party has not been. This is a really super weird attack. Not to mention, he is prodigious in getting legislation passed. Despite the socialist label, he still has the capacity to compromise. My only basic point here is that Warren's entire goal at this point is to play spoiler. She is working within the context of the Democratic Party. Amy and Pete getting out of the race, again, works in the context of the Democratic Party to help Joe Biden try to limp over the finish line. The same Joe Biden that was caught saying this today.
JoeBiden.com. Sign up, volunteer, contribute if you can, but we need you very badly. Every vote matters tomorrow. The most important vote to make sure it's not going to be any problem is that you send back Sheila Jackson Lee as the nominee without any question. That's the most important. Look, tomorrow's Super Tuesday, and I want to thank you all.
Tomorrow is Super Thursday. Super Thursday. What? Also, if you notice, Biden was slurring his words there pretty heavily. Here's another one with Joe Biden giving his awesome linguistic skills.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
That's brutal. You don't know God? You can't say God? This is the guy that they're trying to put on the debate stage. This is the guy that Elizabeth Warren is trying to help win the primary. This is the guy that Klobuchar and Pete, which is more understandable, is trying to help win the primary. The guy who can't remember the name of God when he's arguing we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal under God. I was right. I'm just saying, I was right. This entire way through. Emma Vigeland's, the Ryan Grimms of the world, the Cenk Uygurs of the world, apologists who for the most part acted as if Warren was somehow a friend to the left. And it was as obvious can be, even early on, that the way she was running the race was trying to inhibit and to kneecap Sanders. And if in 2016, she was working to back Clinton, and if we know as a flat fact that she had a deal with Clinton to support Clinton in 2016, we know that her and Clinton are working behind the scenes now in this particular race. We know that Tom Perez was put there by Obama. I mean, Obama was pushing Tom Perez to get into the race. We also know that Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton's wife, the one that's working with Warren, Bill Clinton told Tom Perez, don't let Sanders folks take the party. We also know that the entire Democratic establishment was having these anti-Sanders and stop Sanders meetings, including Obama going behind the scenes in order to try to get rally support against. Sanders. We know that Warren is a creature of the party, whether that's with Standing Rock not coming out until Obama comes out, or whether that's backing Clinton. And the question becomes, if that's the context to which you are looking at Warren, where she would back Clinton over Sanders, then why do you think that would change in this election term? When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. In a very specific case, she told us who she was in 2016. She told us who she was when she was attacking a guy who's never attacked her. She told us who she was in this particular race right now. In the last few months, she's been utterly and entirely belligerent and trying to ruin any chance of a lefty exceeding the nomination. I was right. And I understand people are looking at her through a context saying, I don't understand why Warren is behaving this way. Warren is behaving this way makes all the sense in the world the moment that you accept that she is a factor and a creature working in tandem with the Democratic Party. Everything else makes sense from that perspective. If you think she's an ally and a friend to the left, then this behavior seems confusing. I would point out that she is not a friend to the left. Baltazar. Chris Matthews is being let go by MSNBC. Now, when I saw that Baltazar resigned, but that was going to be my very next show. You preempted me. Nene, Warren would drink Flint water, just saying. If it got her 2 more votes, yes. Baltazar, a more fitting punishment for Warren would be to stand down police with fire hoses in winter in Cannonball, North Dakota, in the place of the water protests. Think about that for the moment. A woman who appropriated the Native American culture, calling herself a Native American, when real Native Americans were getting their heads bashed in, she didn't show up. She didn't vocally push for them, none of that stuff. Warren didn't say anything until Obama came out to say something. Now, that's so overtly political. Under normal circumstances, a human being would say, the fact that I've appropriated this culture for all of this time, I have to say something about this level of onerous behavior that's taken place in Standing Rock. But again, if you want to get ahead politically and you're working as a creature of the party, then you know that it's not necessarily in your best interest if you are sucking up to the party to preempt the president of the United States that's a Democrat. So despite appropriating the culture of Native Americans, when real Native Americans are getting their heads bashed in, you stay mum, which is exactly what she did. Obi-Wan Alfred, if I could find this. There we are. For every motherfucker on the left who paternalistically told us Bernie Sanders supporters to lay off the attacks when she lied about Bernie in order to preserve unity and to not help Biden. Yes, fuck every motherfucker on the left who paternalistically told us Bernie supporters to lay off the attacks on Warren when she lied about Bernie in order to preserve, quote unquote, preserve unity and not, quote unquote, help Biden. Yes, Obi-Wan Alfred, fuck every motherfucker on the left that acted as if Warren should be backed, Warren should be supported, because now all of it is clear as day. She is staying in this race. The only logical reason Warren will stay in this race is to deny Sanders the nomination. That's the only reason. And in denying Sanders the nomination to help Joe Biden or one of these other hacks to cross the finish line in regards to the nomination and to allow superdelegates to steal it from Sanders or at the very least push Biden over the finish line. There is no other reason. How can Warren be a friend and an ally to the left if she is actively attacking the person who the left has agreed with on environment, healthcare, expansion of Social Security, etc.? Meaning the policies that Sanders is putting are the policies that the left has agreed with. We believe he's more authentic. We believe he's more honest in spades. And he has the best chance in regards to the notion of electability of beating Trump. Not just beating Trump, also getting out of the primary. So if Warren is attacking the person with the biggest crowds, attacking the person with a broad base and a broad coalition of whites, blacks, Asians, Hispanics, if she's attacking that person, then how on earth is she being a friend to the left? What she is doing is only going to get Joe Biden or one of these other creatures to walk across the nomination as opposed to somebody like Sanders, who she's supposedly ideologically closest to. No, she's a creature of the party. She's ideologically closest to whatever gets her from point A to point B in regards to political expedience. If that is backing Clinton or if that is backing Joe Biden, she will do that, particularly, if that is also meaning to stop Sanders. I personally think she's going to be rewarded for this if she's able to effectively stop Sanders, and whatever Democrat hobbles over the finish line, they will back her and reward her for her service in stopping Sanders. I'll leave it here. Like, share, and subscribe. Yeah, like, share, subscribe. Be right back. Chris Matthews has resigned or was fired. We'll talk about it in the next show.